Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well, having a wonderful weekend. Just to bring you guys up to speed, I'm going to have Steve Fisher on here of SF Investigates. I'm going to let him fill you in on his significance to the Kiely Rodni case. I don't think I need to go over a timeline or go over any of that stuff. We're all pretty familiar with all of that. But I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. And, real quick, Ikadmel, my man, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Sending some love. Curious to hear what SF has to say. I'm on the road, but listening. Well, I'm glad you could stop in, man. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the super chat, dude. That's way too generous, by the way. Way too much. Thank you, though, man. Thank you so much. Steve.
Hey, how are you?
Real quick, I want to go ahead and just say thank you for joining me. I know that you don't do these a lot, if ever. So it's a real treat to have you, and it's real. I'm really, saying that I'm grateful hardly even begins to describe it. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I've watched, a lot of your coverage of Kiely, and I think it's been responsible coverage, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. So why don't you go ahead and just tell us, start off and tell us a little bit about yourself, like what your connection is to the case exactly. Tell us a little bit about your education, your profession, just bring us up to speed as far as how you tie into this exactly. And
Sure. I am a private investigator. However, my main profession is, which I don't know if a lot of people know, is I'm actually a fashion photographer. But long time ago, I thought aviation and law enforcement was the route I was going to go. So I went to aviation school and became a commercial licensed pilot, and I flew for the Attorney General's office in the state of Texas for a while, and so it was around law enforcement with that, and I went into the Travis County Sheriff's Department Academy. I didn't complete it because I just knew it wasn't the way that I wanted to go. But so then I made a total U-turn and moved to Los Angeles, and because photography and art's always been a part of my thing. However, I always have had this this thing with missing people, and especially the Maddie McCain case down in Portugal years 15 years ago. And actually I just got back from Portugal. I was down there looking at some things, and so I always had done it in the background. Although I've had a Twitter account for I'm guessing at least 15 years, never was active on it. And then the Gabby Petito case kind of brought a lot of people a little bit more forward, and and then right after the Gabby Petito case, there was a couple other cases that I was somewhat involved in, and it's just gone from there, and it's for better, probably for worse. But so the way I got involved is I do all my private investigation work, or at least the vast majority of it, every part of it that has to do with missing persons or domestic violence, I do pro bono. I've never charged a family ever. I've never taken reimbursement money for traveling or anything like that. So I had just gotten back from, I forget where I just gotten back from, and the case, Kiely was still pretty new, and I live in Los Angeles, so it's about an 8-hour drive from me. And I was just laying in bed when I got home that night and thinking about the case, and I was like, I'm just gonna drive up there and just go help search, and And that's what I did. I got in my car and I went up to Truckee, and I checked into a hotel, and I was just there to search. I had no contact with any of her family or anything. I didn't know anything about,
Were you officially, I'm sorry to interrupt, but were you officially hired by any member of the family to help
no,
search?
no,
Sure.
no.
Okay.
I became no. I was not. No, I just went there as a volunteer. Now I became close with her uh, father and grandfather through this process, and they, um, they, I mean, what it was, they came to me and they said, we're not getting any answers from law enforcement at all. We're getting
Right.
shut out. And they're like, everybody seems to think that we're supposed to have an idea of what is going on here. And, it was just a conversation like that that turned into, um, I asked the grandfather, so they live up at, they have uh, a place, a lodge that's a Coldstream, which is behind a 4-mile gated road, private road. And I had asked, the first day I met him, I asked if I could go search Coldstream because there's 3 ponds along Coldstream Road. And he kind of felt me out for a while. And then he gave me the code for their gate and for their house and said, do whatever you want. And that night he saw me out there searching, and I went and had a glass of wine with him and kind of learned a lot about the family and about him, and the pain they were going through, and the uncertainty, and they were just um so confused. It's just that look of confusion, like what is going on,
Of
they just,
course. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's how, I was not hired by the family, but I still talk to them, you know and I think today is Kylie's memorial, so um I'm sure it's a tough day for them, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I noticed some YouTube channels that were actually that made it a trip out there, and they're streaming it.
Oh, really?
And I I don't know how you feel about that, but me, I personally, I find that to be really disrespectful. I think that that's a very personal thing for her loved ones, friends,
Mhm.
and family to honor her and remember her. We don't know her. We don't, you know what I mean? This is not
Yeah,
a show for entertainment. That's a very personal thing for those people to get together and congregate and celebrate her life who knew her. So I thought that that was very uh, questionable to say the least.
yeah,
Um,
I agree, and I think what you said there about this not being a show. I think there's a very distinct difference between covering a case, um, in a news type of way, and turning it into a reality show,
yeah,
and I feel
I
that
agree.
that's kind of what happened. I feel it was my experience anyway. um but that's why I like shows like this. I have no problem with it. It's getting news out there. It's Listen, I was watching live streams while I was searching because it was giving me real-time data, while I was out
Right.
there. So that's important stuff. But there is a line, and what
Yeah,
everybody just got to remember is,
just
yeah,
distasteful. You
it's
know,
a 16,
it's
it's
right. It's a
deceased.
kid,
She's gone.
right? And her
And
friends are
this,
kids too. You know,
yeah,
it's crazy, crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, so throughout this process, while she was missing for about 2 weeks.
yeah.
Were you able to come up with any leads or anything that seemed promising to that would help the family at all? Um,
It was so that was tough too, because, well, it was tough because um there was a limited amount of data, although there were some very helpful data points that I was able to get from the family. For instance, we knew that right before she went to the party, she stopped, and which was a regular routine for her, being a 16-year-old kid. She stopped and put 2 gallons of gas in the car, because she doesn't
okay.
have a ton of cash. So we knew that, and she would run it down pretty low before she would do that. So we knew that the
Every
radius,
young driver does that. They keep
of
it
course,
just about a quarter of a tank, and you
yes,
know what I mean? And
yeah,
oh, I'm getting into that E, and I see the light come on. I better pull in the gas station, throw $10 in there. You
yeah.
know, so
So we knew her radius couldn't have been that huge. So what that enabled law enforcement and other people to do is, one of the first things that was done is they went and got surveillance from every single gas station within that 45-mile arc or
sure.
whatever. So they knew that the car had not gone and got fuel. So as far as it traveling to the Boca, which isn't that far, but going back and forth and possibly getting dumped again after being at the party, you could start doing the math to figure out. And plus, the other thing is there is 3 cameras, highway cameras, that there is one near Boca and there's one on the 80, and there's another one
Really?
up at Donner Pass. There was another one, so, and those were
That's
being
interesting
reviewed.
because it
Hmm.
comes off like it's just in the middle of nowhere, kind of. You know what I mean? That I would not, having
So
looked at that on Google
yeah,
Maps and watching some of the videos of people recreating the drive, I would not have guessed that there would be cameras out there anywhere.
well, just so I don't, so I'm not misunderstood. She could go from Prosser to home if she took a back route, which she probably would have, to be honest, because it's just as short and you stay off the highway and avoid the one camera. But what I mean is, like, if the car had been out by so there's one up at Donner Pass, which is like where the ski area is. Just it's kind of up higher, but it's um, just above Prosser and Boca. So there's one there, and then there's one on the freeway, because if you were to go from Prosser to her house without taking the back roads, you would get on the highway for 2 exits, and you would pass a traffic cam. And we weren't. I know we weren't the only ones monitoring that camera, and that had been looked going backwards as well. So there was a lot of that type of, keep in mind the FBI card team was there. I was staying in the same hotel as them. That's the Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team. That's
Right,
like the top team in the FBI. I mean, those are the badasses, and
right.
they
What
were
they
there,
do is look for missing people on a national level, right?
and they do not F around. I mean, they,
Right.
they, they're looking for kids. And so
And you
time
can
is,
you can drop F bombs in here, man. I
oh,
don't
okay.
worry
I,
about
I
that.
didn't know.
You're perfectly cool with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
I do it
they
all
don't
the
fuck
time.
around.
So
They know
right.
that every minute counts, and a lot of times they're dealing with like little children. So they were at the hotel I was staying at. They were staying there. Homeland Security was there. Um, Marshals, U.S. Marshals. So there was a lot of activity, and things were happening, and right there where the volunteer center was, the California Highway Patrols, California Highway Patrol has a large headquarters building there, and so that's where everybody was based out of. And then the
So just
volunteer
to give
center,
everybody a
yeah,
perspective, we're talking there's the CHP, there's the FBI, there's the Placer County Sheriff's Department, and then there's there was another sheriff's department. Was it
Nevada
not?
County,
Nevada County. That's who I was trying to think of.
and
Who
also the
took over the
Truckee Police
case,
Department.
and the
Yeah,
Truckee Police Department. So that's five different law enforcement entities that
hmm
were looking for Kiely and trying to get answers.
and Homeland Security.
And Homeland.
Um,
Wow. So 6
yeah,
so far.
yeah, and I'll tell you what, that there is no place that I went within, and I'm talking even on remote back roads that had like cattle guards and stuff. There's nowhere I went that didn't have a flyer for her. I mean, and that's one of the things that was kind of suspect to me about, which I'm sure we'll get into later. The tow truck driver guy is not knowing about it. I mean, literally everybody in this town knew about it. I mean, it was they had those, the portable billboard signs that they can put up.
Yeah.
They were all over, Kylie with her license plate number and everything. I mean, you couldn't go anywhere without,
Do you
knowing.
feel, in your experience with working with law enforcement agencies in the past, do you feel that they did the best they could to find Kiely? That would you say that you saw an effective performance from all of them, as far as just based on your experience in working with law enforcement in the past?
Yeah, so that's a hard one to say because first of all, I was not there until she went missing on Saturday. Saturday morning at 9 a.m. is when she technically didn't show up. I didn't arrive till the next Saturday. So she'd been gone a week. The feds, I know, I mean, they always keep a low profile, but there was a lot of activity at the CHP building and in and out of the hotel. Well, I was very surprised that the whole week, the whole 8 days that I was there searching, I never saw one helicopter until the fine was made, and then they were out.
Wow.
Never saw a single helicopter. I did see on 3 days, I did see the dive team out there in one boat, 3 guys or guys and girls, whatever, out there for 4 to 5 hours at a time. I saw them 3 different occasions. Never saw organized searchers. However, it was clear that there had been definitely had been professional search crews, because there was a lot of the twist ties, like they'll mark them in the trees, like if there's something on the ground, they'll put a tie where you can see. So they definitely were there, but the whole time I was there was 2 other people that I saw on a regular basis, and who were civilians like myself, and one of them was the guy, I don't know if he wants his real name, he was the guy from Check It TV who did that dive the other day. He was out there, and there was one other guy that was that knew the family. I would see them, pretty much on a daily basis. But other than that, I never saw one of her friends, anybody out.
Check It TV. They're the ones who found the laptop just the other day, right?
Yeah.
So you're telling me that you saw them consistently out there searching?
Yeah.
And,
so the way I met him was I was at the party location, and I was talking to FBI and a couple of sheriff's officers or deputies, and we were like sitting in the cars talking, and I could see in the distance, pretty far off, that there was a car sitting there. And then when I left, and I was pulling out of what would be the dirt area to go back onto the main road in the Prosser, the asphalt road, there was a guy there, and he waved me down. He's like, "Hey, I'm not trying to be nosy or anything." He's like, "But I've been out here searching. I'm a local. Can you just give me an idea? Would you mind telling me like where the actual party location was? Because I'm getting all these different stories." And I asked him a few questions, and he was by himself, and I could tell he seemed legit to me. So I told him, I showed him where the party location was, and I also showed him where the last cell phone ping was. And I said, "Good luck." And then I just ran across him a couple other times. He would DM me, he would find some things. He's a real thorough searcher.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And the last place, just to confirm, the last place that the cell phone pinged was at the Prosser Reservoir. Yes,
it was
or right near it.
It was the spot that I was given, kind of off the record, but by federal people, was within the actual dot on the map was within 50 yards of where the car was found.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay. It was. So there's a little finger of water. If you're looking at the point, there's like a diamond. That diamond, like, it looks like a boat ramp, but it's not a boat ramp. And then it hits the water. Just if you're looking at the water to the left, there's a little finger of water. That's where the ping came from. But I think it came from the car itself. Now that we know what the car is, I think it's somewhere down there by the car.
I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into this, because I know a lot of people are asking about it, because I'm very, very curious about it.
Okay.
In the AWP little mini documentary that they made, or whatever you want to call that, they interviewed this tow truck driver who claimed that he spotted and actually interacted with Kiely and another individual who loosely fit Jagger's description.
Yeah.
How what is your opinion on that entire little interview made with this guy? Do you think that he's credible? Do you think that it's possible that he even saw Kiely the next day? What's your opinion on that as an investigator?
Well, so let me just tell you how we were told that, because it'll lead in. So when we arrived, first of all, I want to say, I want to preface the whole thing by saying everybody is incredibly grateful and for them finding Kiely. They have unbelievable skills. There is I personally have some issues with what happened after that fact, that like,
sure.
And one of them has to do with like this tow truck driver. When we arrived, after I got the news from somebody I work with, and I had to tell her father and her grandfather, we went to where Adventures with Purpose was at, because I knew I could see them, and I had no idea that they were mic'd up and cameras were rolling and they were wearing microphones. And so Doug said, can I take you guys aside and talk to you? And
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying that at no point did they say, "Hey, we're filming and we're making a documentary here." So just to let you know, so they didn't even inform you that they were making a movie, that they were.
No idea. I mean, if I would have noticed that he was wearing a lapel microphone, which in that moment, there's so much going on. It's like, oh my God, she's right there at that buoy. It's the last thing I'm thinking about, is that it's a reality show being filmed right now, But he said, can I speak to you guys man to man? And law enforcement wasn't there yet, so that I should have picked up on that. But anyway, we walked down by the water line and we're standing in the circle, and this is the thing. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, because I know that they'll probably use the sound clip in one. He said, if somebody had done this, who would you suspect? And at that time, the two people that I personally would have been on my radar, and I was looking into, were Jagger and Sammy. And I said that. So I said Jagger and Sammy, and he goes, okay. And then he rolls in and tells us the story about the tow truck driver. But he also added in that they then showed him a picture of Jagger and he identified Jagger.
So the tow truck, so off camera, they confirmed that they actually showed, because I was wondering about that. I was like, did they actually show a picture of him? And
I don't know. I'm sure. Well,
because why wouldn't you show a picture? There's got to be. You could just pull up your phone and show the interview that he gave and be like, was this the guy that you saw? You know what I mean? So you're saying that they did do that, and they told us, and they told you that
in that meeting,
that the tow truck driver positively identified Jagger as being the person that he saw with Kiely the Saturday at 11 a.m. following the Friday that she was missing.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So we were all like, whoa, like, like, oh my God. Okay. So shortly after that, the FBI asked, so then now law enforcement is showing up, right? As we're having this meeting, they're showing up, and the FBI asked Adventures with Purpose to leave. And in fact, they asked David and Dan. They said that David and Daniel, they wanted them to go to CHP headquarters because they were going to bring the rest of the family there. And once they notified the family, and her father Daniel agreed to go, but David said he wasn't going to leave his granddaughter. So I stayed there with him. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
No, go
actually, go ahead to finish. I just thought of something, but
so he said he wasn't going to leave his granddaughter. So I stayed there with him, and then so him and I started talking, and we were like, okay, so let's think this through. Like, let's make this work. How does this work? Because the cell phone pinged at 12:33 p.m. the night before in the water. So now we're talking, that means somebody throws the phone in the water, then they go to Boca and they camp, and somehow, so that's the first part.
Yeah, because the tow truck driver said that Kiely and the person she was with claimed that they were there all night because the battery had died. So they camped there all night and then finally got this tow truck driver at 11 a.m.
So, and the other thing is, people got to keep in mind, when Kiely texted her mom to ask to stay out later, she was sharing her location with her mom. So we know that she was there, So again, this means that the phone gets thrown in the water in the exact same spot they're eventually going to ditch the vehicle, apparently, and then they go on a camping trip. That doesn't make sense, right? And then and then,
but why? I mean, that's my whole thing is, I mean, you're the investigator. I'm just a layman who has at least some level of common sense, at least I think I do. What doesn't add up to me is, okay, so like you said, let's say foul play is involved. Let's say Jagger's a suspect, right? Like you said, they throw the phone in the water, and then what? They drive all the way 30 minutes to the Boca Reservoir, camp there all night, and then somebody does something to Kiely after 11 a.m. or after the tow truck driver leaves. Then they take the car back to the party area where that body of water is, and then ditch the car in there, push the car in, and the car's upside down in 14 feet of water.
And this is a period of time.
Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense to me. Why not just ditch it in Boca? You know what I mean?
There you go. I mean, and then how do they get then out of a Prosser? They have to take two vehicles in. You've got 200 plus searchers at this point, because this is the first couple of days out there in Prosser scouring the area. The one day that they did helicopter sweeps 2 days, from what I was told, and that was the Saturday and the Sunday. So it would have had to been one hell of a miracle to pull off bringing that car back, to Prosser, and then,
she's already when exactly was she actually reported missing?
So she technically was called. They originally went to the police department at about 11 something a.m. because they went to the Starbucks.
So that's Saturday. So
yes.
So according to the truck driver, when he saw them in real time at the same time as when Kiely's family is at the police station reporting her missing.
Yes. And he says Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, but I can tell you that her grandfather told me that she was with him up until about 12:30 in the afternoon on Friday, the day she went to the party, but he was with her that morning up till so it wasn't Friday, because he says Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, which in a situation like this, I think there's lots of things. Like he said, the torture driver said he called his girlfriend. He was so concerned. Why not just look at your call logs and see what day you called her to verify what day?
Right. And there was cameras. He said that there were cameras, two cameras on the towing vehicle. So wouldn't that immediately, first of all, he says he went to law enforcement.
Right.
Wouldn't law enforcement immediately be like, you have cameras on this thing? Can we take a look at them? And then basically, you know what I mean? So wouldn't there have been further questioning of Jagger if that were the case?
So by that time, they had already questioned Jagger and everybody in her immediate orbit, right? And not as a suspect, but just like, when was the last time you talked to her?
To find out what happened to her, of course.
Okay, so I think we all know, a lot of people learned during the Trump presidency, lying to the FBI is a crime in itself. You don't have to commit another crime. If you lie to the FBI, you're fucked. So what people, I think, got to realize is this was the card team that was there. And so this information gets relayed. Now, maybe this part, maybe I misunderstood but the way it was that I heard it when they told us was Doug said that they got this information and the next morning they called law enforcement and gave them the lead. Now I see that they're saying, the tow truck driver saying he did it a week earlier. So that means, let me tell you, if a lead comes in like that has video and audio evidence,
right?
The FBI is going to have that in a matter of hours, not days, hours.
Yeah, and they're
can
gonna
get
have a trained technical professional like going over it with a fine tooth comb. Like,
yes, and I mean they'll get it that quick. They have 20. You know, you can call a judge to get a search warrant 24
sure.
hours a day. I mean, they'd get. Trust me, it was such a big news, and judge was going to sign off on that. Like for instance, there was, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you know, before Kylie went missing, she was in Mexico for like a week with Mags and Mags' mom on vacation, and you know, being kids, they had met, you know, some guys down there, whatever. For that also happened to live in California, so you know that came out, because the FBI is like, who has she talked to? So, well, it came out. Oh, well, they were in Mexico. There's guys. They tracked this guy down 300 miles away the same day and had agents interview him for over an hour. You know, they didn't waste any time.
Right.
So
I mean,
so
they're the FBI. They
they're
have offices everywhere, and one office calls another one and says, "We need you to go and pick this guy up and ask him a couple questions."
Yeah,
You
especially when
know,
you're talking about missing person or minutes count.
it's as fast as a phone call.
And so I guarantee you, somebody like a AAA, and it was told to us by law enforcement, it was AAA. And you can bet that within 8 hours of that being told to law enforcement, they had that video from that truck. They had the dispatch logs from AAA to the driver. They had the call, however it came in from being dispatched. It's an insurance product, right? Whose card is it used? Because the tow truck driver says that she called it in, but with somebody else's phone because it was dead, but she doesn't have AAA. So
he did say that he worked for roadside assistance, and I don't know if that's a county thing, because I know some places have like it's just a service that the county or the city offers.
Yeah.
So maybe
so when we were talking to the FBI, so after Doug told us that, and the FBI had them leave, the FBI and Nevada County and Placer sheriffs came to me and to David, her grandfather, and kind of took it separately and said, what did they disclose to you about the AAA lead? So that's why I'm saying AAA, because they said that, you know, so I assume that means that they were told it was AAA, because they referred to it as the AAA lead, you know. So I don't think it's, and here's another thing about it too, that makes it a little suspect. There was a lead in Boca at the very beginning. Somebody at campground, at that same campground, thought they may have seen her. And it wasn't, I don't think a lot of people know about it, but it wasn't a super secret thing. In fact, the grandfather and her father went there themselves and talked to the campground people. And so I think maybe word got, I think maybe it was building on that, maybe building on that lead, but I'm not saying AWP made it up, but I think somebody made it up. I don't know if it was the tow truck driver admitted he's a big fan of theirs. And
I noticed that was the first thing I noticed when I watched that interview.
And then he reads about it.
That's how they introduced him. They were like, he's a big fan and supporter of our YouTube channel. You know,
they just happened to drive by, and he tracks him down in a Best Buy parking lot, and he's got this lead. That's like, oh my God. So I think this lead has really well, one, it's creating a lot. Listen, if somebody did something to Kiely, I want them caught just as much as anybody. I'm not, you know, but I feel like people are going to be disappointed if this is an accident, and that, you know, we can't ruin people's lives. There's nothing besides what this guy says, which, trust me, if they had seen a video, even if Kiely was still alive, if they seen a video with Jagger in it at Boca on Saturday when he told the FBI he was in Napa, he would be locked up for lying to the FBI. They would have grabbed him on that charge and held him and then really interrogated him. You know, I mean,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, but you also have, I mean, The problem is there's just two things that look really bad, but at the same time, one of those things doesn't look as bad to me as it looks to everybody else.
Mhm.
One of those things is the fact that law enforcement searched that water and did not find her car, and then AWP goes in there within, I mean, a very short period of time and finds the car.
Yeah.
Now, my theory on that is just simple, that law enforcement doesn't have the experience, or at least the law enforcement in that area doesn't have the experience of searching for vehicles in bodies of water that much. This is what AWP does. This is what they do. So they're obviously more experienced in doing that, and that's the explanation to me why they did it. I don't think that law enforcement necessarily dropped the ball in that regard. That's just my uneducated opinion. But then there's the laptop, and then there's the YouTubers that found the laptop. And then everybody's just like, oh, law enforcement dropped the ball again because they missed the laptop. But is the laptop really that significant if it was an accident?
No.
Well,
it's actually not. Now, it does piss me off that it was sloppy in the sense that I think that there's stuff on there. For instance, she was very gifted in music, like written music, recorded music, and stuff on it that could be important to the family. Listen, the laptop and her iChat that syncs to the laptop and her iCloud has all been accessed. The laptop didn't hold any secrets. You know what I mean? Like the location. Listen, she was on a family plan.
I mean, it's a MacBook. It's a MacBook. So if somebody has access, if they can get into her iCloud, then everything that's on the laptop, essentially, for the most part, in theory, they already had access to without even having to access the laptop at all, like physically. And
I think maybe people have noticed that her like Instagram account and stuff, like there's been some tribute accounts created by Jagger or friends, whatever, and those have been followed by Kiely's account. So I think that shows that those accounts, there's access to those accounts, right? So it's safe to say that, and not only that, but she was on a family plan with Verizon. It's in the grandfather's name. It was as simple as going to the Verizon store and getting a bill and being able to see all the activity and see exactly when calls.
I have a minor granddaughter who went missing, and I need access to what her device.
Just like I just want. Can you just give me a printout of my current statement of my activity? So it wasn't that hard, and I think. No,
and these are simple things that all of these online sleuths just don't even begin to take into consideration. Very simple things.
And the event data recorder in the car. The car did have one. So we know. They know when an event happened, at what time and date. And so and the thing is like. I've just tried to throw some of these things out there to kind of de-escalate it a little bit, because it's hurt. The family doesn't listen. Like I said, if somebody did this to her, they need to pay, and the family wants to pay. But also, the family doesn't want this to be that one of her friends killed her, and they don't want to ruin anybody's lives. Because
they don't want to find that out. That what they want is the most simplest explanation.
They want the truth.
They want the truth, but they're hoping for the simplest explanation so that they can mourn in peace and move on as quickly as they can. So, everybody wants and it's like you were saying earlier, what you said earlier, I've said 1,000 times on this channel. And it's so weird that people in mass just seem to want the most dramatic outcome without considering how that affects real people who just lost somebody that they love. And in this case, a 16-year-old kid who was two grades ahead and had an unbelievably bright future ahead of her. Limitless. And nobody's considering that. Everybody just wants someone that they want the bad guy. They want a bad guy to be caught, and then they want to see it go to trial, because if they plead guilty, then they get robbed out of the drama of a trial, right? So then they want to see him go, no, I didn't do it, and then they go, yes, you did, and blah blah blah, and then and they want this to just drag out so they have more drama. And it's like, this is not a Lifetime movie.
So that's it. I
this
mean,
is a
it's become,
kid.
she's
like dead.
Again, Adventures with Purpose is amazing at what they do. They have an amazing ability, and you know what? I was there before they had them leave when Placer County, apparently Nevada County contracts with Placer County to use their dive teams, but they came up and asked Adventures with Purpose. They said, "We would love for you to sit down with us and show us how you're reading your sonar, because it's an amazing ability that they do. They're great at that. However, why do we got to be respectful of the fact that this family just got the worst news they're ever going to get their entire life, and it doesn't need to be this like microphone like if I knew we were walking down to a hot set, I would have never taken it.
Right, exactly. Some situations should have been respected as private, with privacy. And I agree with you on that, but that does remind me of the question that I was going to ask you earlier. How did the members of Kiely's family get the news? Walk me through that.
Yeah, so this has been this is how this all started, and this all started because of this group online. But so that on that day, on Sunday, I had heard from Kiely's grandfather early in the morning, like 6 a.m. And he said, "Hey, would you meet me at Coldstream, which is meaning that's their lodge, at 6 p.m. tonight?" He's like, "I just want to talk about like what can we do? Like what are," and I said, "Sure." So I was going out searching, and then now at that time, at that moment, he was at a different property he has, so he had like email access. And so then about 12:45, I got an email from him. He just has a flip phone, so he doesn't text or anything. I got an email from him, and it just said Prosser 1 p.m. That's all it said. So I was already out there, and I was like, okay, and so I was at the area kind of below the party location, like at that point, where she was found. If you follow the beach down, then there's another point like that. I was kind of in between the two on a road, and I ran across David, or he ran across me. I was parked and searching, and he's like, "Hey," and so we started chatting, and then I actually then sent a drone up while we were talking, and then about 4 or 5 minutes, and I could see Adventures with Purpose actually, and about 4 or 5 minutes later, a quad runner comes up, the guy in the helmet, but he's got like a flat jacket and he's got a pistol on. So I'm like, oh, okay, so this is gonna be the feds telling me take the drone down, and he gets off, he takes the helmet off, and it's Daniel, it's her father.
Okay.
And so who I'd met before, so he's like, hey, so we all started talking, and we were there for at least a good hour or so, and then they had not seen the photos, the photos that Sammy had put out. There's one that's like a kind of like a panoramic, like the 20 or 30 kids, in the forest, which kind of looks like like 1990s Nirvana type, So I was showing them that photo and a couple of the others, or actually I was telling them about it, and they had not seen it. So I contacted DX the Mystery, who she's an amazing investigator, sleuth, whatever you want to say, in Tennessee, and I called her and said, hey, I am with David and Daniel, could you send me those photos real quick? So she sent them to me, and I showed it to them, and what we decided we were going to do is they wanted to go find those exact trees that were in that photo, and see if that was actually taken up there. So we were mapping that out, and just as we were getting ready to get in the car and go up there, I got a call from DX at 2:48, and I answered the phone, and she, I just tell the tone of her voice, and she's like, have you heard? And I was like, what? And she's kind of like slowly like backing into it. I'm like, just tell me what is it? And I turned my back and she's like, Adventures with Purpose, put out a Facebook post that they found her. And so I was like, okay. And so then I hung up and I turn around and but I could see like activity. So it ends up that they put it out 30 minutes before, but I could see like these people like in the campgrounds were like starting to look. So I just turned around and I said, I'm so sorry to have to tell you this, but it's out on social media, but they found Kiely and she's in the water. And it was heartbreaking. And and they said, where is she? Where is she? And I said, she's, I know that they're right down on the point. And so we went down there. Daniel jumped on his quad runner and screamed down there, and David got in his truck and I got in mine, and we were only 3/8 of a mile away. We pulled up, and I watched the Adventure with Purpose thing for the first time today. I've seen people screenshot clips, but I didn't want to watch it, but I watched it just for the sake of doing this. And, when you see Daniel riding up on the quad runner, and, that's how they were notified. And then David, who's her mom's father, used my phone to call his wife to tell her. And
do you know how her mom found out?
I was told. Okay. I have not talked to her mom. I was told by her dad, the grandfather, that she found out to friends on social media when she was eating. And I know I did hear from the grandmother for the first time last night. She emailed me about something, and she confirmed that that's how she found out as well, through friends from social media. So I know there's a lot of people saying, oh, the dad and grandfather were with Adventures with Purpose. And, I know they maybe edited it that way to look like it, but they, we found out on social media,
There's a question here.
Mm-hmm.
Says, how come AWP said that the dad was there within 90 seconds of them notifying the family?
That's if they said that, that's an incorrect statement. I can tell you, I know that I know on the Facebook, I know there was 4 edits to it apparently, but I think it first came out at like 2:28 or something like that. I can't remember, but at 2:48 is when I got the call, and we were probably there at 2:50. In fact, I, just because I'm an investigator, I like film everything. I have a video here. Let me see when it's timestamped. I have a video of us driving down, and you can see Daniel on the quad runner in front of us. Let me see when that's timestamped at that. Yeah,
because people are saying, because in the video,
here it is.
They're saying they see. They're saying that they
2:50. That's us driving down. It's timestamped August 21st, 2:50 p.m.
Okay. But yeah, people are saying that AWP, that in the video, mm-hmm. you can see them calling the aunt and grandmother.
But they're in a boat when they do that, right? And I mean, when we arrive, I mean, Doug's on land. So
right.
You know what I mean? So here's the other thing. When I was watching that video today, their sonar has times on it, and there's timestamps at 12 something in the afternoon. So they say the next day, they said that they confirmed the car. They found the car and it was confirmed at 10:30, and they said it was confirmed at 11:15. So why they didn't call law enforcement at 11:15, I don't know. But in their own timestamps that I just noticed 30 minutes before we started this, on their sonar, it shows, one of them shows 12:10 p.m. And this is when he says he's going to make the phone call. And then, but the other one shows, and then when he tells everybody, turn your phones off, I screenshot that, and that guy's phone, he shows him turning it off, is 12:16 p.m. But then they must have refilmed some stuff, because then their sonar starts showing 3 something p.m. So I think they
Right.
refilmed scenes.
I have no doubt in my mind, because that's how those things are done. It was very professionally
Yeah.
done.
I think
I'm not.
if they're talking about the 90 seconds, the only thing I can imagine is when we showed up, when we got there, they're like, who are you guys? You know, and they're like, Dino's like, I'm her father, blah, blah. And I explained to them, I said, we just heard the news 2 minutes ago, which is true. And we drove right down. So maybe he's saying from the time that I was notified, I don't know, but that Facebook post was out for at least 20 or 30 minutes, because it's time stamped.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I got it quick.
Yeah.
Because I have I'm very well informed by my moderators, and I also have good relations with very, very good and reputable YouTubers who have very good resources as well, and very quick to. So as soon as one YouTuber that I know got the news, boom, I got the text saying they found her, and that's when I saw the Facebook post.
So it's 2:48, and I can tell you when we got down there, and this is not knocking this person at all, because that's their job, but I think that some notifications have been out to other people earlier, because I think they made the discovery around noon, because there was a New York Post photographer there when we arrived.
Yeah, and I think the first article I read was a New York Post. When I kept, because as soon as I got that text, I started looking up news. I started Googling news, to see what happened, and it was all, the source of that information was all, allegedly they found her based on this Facebook post. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there were news sources that were quick to do that. I want to read this because this is one of your tweets that say, statement by David Robertson, grandfather of Kiely Rodni. Everyone, please stop this madness. Leave us alone. You are hurting our family. Grandpa Robertson. And then a statement by Lori Mae Herring, aunt to Kiely Rodni. Let this be known. Adventures with Purpose never contacted me, Aunt Lori, by phone or email. I return all missed calls. So that's a contradiction to what they said in their video, according to this statement. And this is a direct statement from her, you're saying? Let me finish reading it, though. Let me finish it. She says, I found out by my great niece when 2 friends sent me a text as it was posted on social media by AWP. I received an email from my brother, David Robertson, which is Grandpa Robertson, later that night informing me that she had been found. I am outraged that AWP say they contacted me. Laura Mae Herring.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a bit of a contradiction to what they said in the video, is it not?
So, and this is the thing where I'm just getting absolutely murdered online about.
Sorry,
first of all,
I'm going to bring it up.
No. I want to clarify this, because first of all, I just released the statement. He asked me to, and I'm not going to say no to the family. But here's the thing. So everybody's saying, well, it was Lori, Lori, who's her stepfather's sister, that they called. Okay, but the thing is that, remember when they came out and they said, well, out of respect for the family, we edited out the notification part? Well, that's because it said Lori, Lauri, on the screen that they were calling, not Lori. So they edited it out because they were wrong. So why don't they just come out and say, yeah, you know what? We contacted a step parent's relative, not, and where I have the issue too is, and again, we're incredibly grateful they found her, but it throws the family under the bus when you're calling them liars, and calling them liars through me, because these are their statements, and they're saying, and they were available. I don't know what they're talking about. They couldn't get a hold of me. The volunteer center, the family they were living there in a trailer. They were there 24/7. You had to drive by the volunteer center to get to Prosser. Why didn't they just stop? That's how I met the family. Why not just stop and introduce themselves and be like, hey, and they had their numbers written on the whiteboard on the trailer. I mean, one of them they called was in Chicago, so I don't get that.
Yeah.
But if it was a mistake, just say, hey, yeah, you know what? We screwed up. We called the wrong lorry. We put the wrong lorry on screen. But people should understand that, like, there was nothing there's nothing vicious by the family or by me. It was just saying, listen, you put on the screen, you called Aunt Lori, Laure. Aunt Lori says she was never called. Now they're saying, oh, well, you're an idiot. They called Lori, Lori. I'm like, okay, well, can you see where the confusion is? I mean, that's not what it said on the screen,
Yeah, I mean, there's some really angry people in chat right now.
Oh my God!
This is outrageous. How dare you? Blah blah blah. And it's like,
it's the facts.
Nobody's now, in all, with all due respect, it is hearsay. I mean, but you're saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Except those are statements. I didn't write those statements. Yeah.
Right. And I'm not in a position to call you a liar. You know what I mean? It's what you say it is. It's what you say it is. It is what it is. But my whole thing is like, and I've been going through this a lot, it's why is it so hard to believe that somebody who does some good with what they're very good at makes a mistake that could cause some damage? And why are they not open to criticism just because they did some good? I mean, I understand, like, they found Kiely. That's awesome. I'm sure her family is extremely grateful for it.
They are.
But are they wrong for having some criticism on how they've handled things since?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does anybody, you know what I mean? And if anybody has the right to criticize them, isn't it the family?
Yeah. I believe so, because I mean, they have to, like, again, this isn't a reality show. This is actually their reality, and they do, even though they're pretty off the grid type of people, they are seeing this and they're hearing it, and it's just like, just be like, yeah, you know what? And first, they've never explained why they never contacted law enforcement, and they didn't show it in a phone call. They didn't show it in law enforcement. They found this car at noon or earlier. They were there filming it for 3 hours before they made an announcement, and that's, I don't know.
Yeah. So, right. I mean, so yeah, I mean, is it wrong to say that they just could have done certain things better, like contact law enforcement immediately? Yeah. I mean, we're quick to go. These same people who are criticizing anybody for saying that are quick to say that law enforcement completely screwed up and they didn't even do a good job. They're worthless because they didn't find the car when they looked for it. And it's like, you don't know what that's like. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know what it's like to be a cop in that area, what kind of experience that those police officers have. You don't know. You know what I mean? No. Like, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. Julie, thank you. Timestamps don't lie. Thank you, Steve, she says. And SB, he's not saying that they didn't contact LE. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that he feels that they probably should have contacted them sooner. That's all he's saying. I mean, it's not.
Law enforcement has told me that they have no record of them calling. They learned about it on Facebook. I've had contact with the agencies since.
So law enforcement agencies, there's law enforcement officers that have told you this directly, that's how they found out.
What they said was they could have called some inside line to somebody maybe they had a number for, but they certainly didn't call the non-emergency or the 911 line and report it. They learned about it on social media.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I learned about it. That's how everyone here learned about it. And I don't know why everybody's is in so much of a twist over it when, I mean, how did you find out about it? You found out about it from their Facebook post, did you not?
Yeah.
I can ask all 900 people in here, and they're going to tell me that's how they found out. So why is this so hard to believe?
I don't know. everybody seems to think that I've got this thing for AWP. I'm so
Right. Same
grateful.
here.
I mean,
Yeah.
they have an amazing ability, what they do. I mean, they really do. And but the thing is, I'm also going to stick up for the family, because the things I'm saying because I was asked to by the family. They're like, like, why, after AWP left, um, I don't think it's a secret that, that the FBI, and especially Nevada County and Placer County, came over to us, and they were really troubled by the notification process. They were like, this is not how it was supposed to happen. They said, we talked to them, we shared data with them, confidential data, and we had an agreement. And this is not how it was supposed to happen. We were supposed to be notified, and they were pissed. They were really pissed. And I think that came out in that news conference the next day,
Right. And then
so
they got criticized,
yeah,
like they got
yeah,
slammed all over social media for saying
yeah,
that on in the press conference. And
yeah,
so for some, and I think that's a really dangerous thing when law enforcement in a situation like this
mhm,
gets such a bad rap, because the bottom line is they are the professionals and we do have to rely on them, and they
yeah.
deserve a certain level of our respect. We can't just all of a sudden be like, you know what, screw law enforcement, we need to just get
Mhm.
YouTubers to jump in the water and start searching.
Well,
That's very dangerous,
that
you
the
know.
last thing I'll say about that, because I'll say that, like, because I don't want to seem like I'm just attacking AWP, because I'm really not. I'm just trying to defend my
Nobody
position on
is.
it. I know, like, people are now saying, I've seen the last couple of days, people are, ever since the laptop was found, that they should have just let AWP recover the car. And AWP is not trained to deal. There was a body in, and not a decomposed body, not a fully decomposed body. Kiely was in that vehicle. They are not trained in forensics. They're not trained to extract that vehicle with the body inside. And there was a very, and we were part of that conversation. AWP was gone, but the grandfather and I were. They did involve us in that conversation, what their plan was for rolling the car and what they were going to do with Kiely and stuff. And, that's not, it's just not something AWP or any civilian is trained to deal with it. That was the FBI's,
Right. I mean, I'm I don't mind stating my opinion, and I don't
yeah,
mind getting backlash for it. And my opinion is, they're good at they're
right,
excellent at finding things in the water. But what they did with that video, I thought was for dramatic effect
yeah,
without being considerate of how it would affect Kylie's friends and family.
yeah.
Um, I
And
I
then
I
to
don't
say we
mind.
got
I don't
more.
mind saying that. Now,
Yeah,
again, that's not saying that they don't deserve praise for what they did as far as finding Kiely and bringing closure to
yeah,
the family. Of course,
yeah.
um, I'm
They
gonna.
did. Listen, she probably would. I mean, eventually, and this isn't to take away from them. Eventually, the lake levels drop. She may have been found, but this family would still be suffering much worse than they are now if it had not been for AWP. Because I do not believe, like I said, the whole time I was there until AWP found her, I didn't see. There was no helicopters. The dive team was out there 2 or 3 times. I mean, all my drone footage I shot was right over that area, because that's where the cell phone ping was, and they were working that area. They missed it. You know what I mean? Like, so thank God for Adventures with Purpose, or this would have been a cold case. I'm convinced.
Of course, of course.
However, you know,
I now, were you privy to her condition when she was found in the water? Meaning, were you made aware of whether or not she was clothed, whether or not she was bound, uh, basically her physical condition to a certain degree? Were you made privy to that at the time? And is there anything about that
yeah.
that you
So
can share with us?
yeah, so I'll be kind of listen. I wouldn't encourage anybody to run with the bound theory. Yes, there was video and photos that were shot, um, and by Adventures with Purpose before anybody arrived. And I don't know if this was, obviously the family wanted to know, confirm that it was, that Kiely was in there. So, I was shown something, but then there was, I don't know if this was sloppiness. And again, this is not to bag on them, but there was an airdrop that went out to a lot of people. And, yeah. So I've seen some things, the windows were kind of algaed over, but I think, it was, I mean, it wasn't like a it's cold water. As far as I don't want to I don't want to just because I've been asked by not to I don't want to get into the confirming or denying if she was clothed or not. I know they said there were shoes on. I'm convinced it was an accident, if that tells you anything.
Fair enough. I mean, but I
So
don't know as much as you do, and
if she was
I'm of the
found
opinion that it was an accident.
unclothed, if she was found unclothed, I think the truckee would be overrun with FBI agents still. If they didn't have somebody in custody.
Right.
That's my personal feeling.
I would agree with you in that sense. I mean, I feel like
to
somebody would be, because I know that it takes time to collect evidence. If they have a suspect, what they want to do is collect evidence, and they don't want to spook the person that they have suspected. And then, when they feel like they have enough that will convict them in a court of law is when they make an arrest. Right. Now, real quick, I want to address this comment. People are just so angry. It's just so, in a way, it's funny to me.
I know. Yeah.
Ellie rocked the car back and forth until it flipped. How unprofessional. The car was upside down. How do you expect them to pull the car out? You see what I'm saying? Like, sometimes there's just no other way,
And also
the car was upside down in the water. How do you expect them? You expect them to conduct a forensic investigation underwater with the car there? And no, that's not how it works. They have to get the car out.
I will say
rocking it back and forth to get it on its four wheels so they could pull it out is the way to do it. Then that's the way it had to be done. It's not great. It's some situations are not ideal, but they're just necessary, unfortunately.
Yes, I'll tell you how that whole thing went down too, because they did involve us in those conversations. So originally they came to us and they said, okay, the plan is there. They said, we're sending divers in the water right now, which they did, and they're going to fully video everything before we touch the car, before we lay a finger on the car. We're going to video everything we can. And they had selfie sticks to put in the car and stuff. So then they came out and they said, okay, so our plan is that we're going to drag the car out on the roof just to the point where we can get Kiely out. We'll remove her, and then we'll pull the rest of the car out. Then about 30 minutes later, then the FBI crime lab truck, the black trailer, showed up. It came in from San Francisco. And so then about 30 minutes later, they came to us and they said, okay, there's been a change. They're like, the FBI wants the car rolled in the water because they're afraid of that roof collapsing, and they want to leave Kiely in there for now for evidentiary reasons. So that's why they did that decision. And then they were up against a time clock because it was getting dark, right? And again, if this had been called in at noon, they would have had more time to, I think that they had to kind of work a little quicker pace than they wanted to get the car to the water line, because it was, but I still think it's really sloppy work that all that shit was left there, because they had trailing divers following the car. And, I don't know how they didn't see that, all that stuff. And there was more stuff recovered today by different divers. That was for,
right. So they did actually send law enforcement actually did send divers in after the fact and just didn't find anything. And then a YouTuber goes in there and then finds the laptop.
Yeah. So if you see when they recover, and keep in mind, I mean, this is just from what I've seen after, but I could see it from the shore. I was at the, where they were pulling it out, but you could see the dive boat, or the dive boat kind of following behind the car. Well, if you notice, there's two divers in the water in front of the boat too. They're kind of help, making sure that the thing stays on course. Or I don't know, but I would think that they would have had eyes in the water, or noticing stuff like that, because that was it was a lot of stuff. And apparently the diver that called me last night that found more, that went down with tanks, and this is a private individual, not law enforcement. They said there's a lot more stuff that's actually where the car originally was. So, that's sloppy. That is on lawn. And that turns it into this circus.
Right.
Because no matter what,
I think there's so many rings to this circus.
Oh.
If you catch my analogy, there's just so many. I think that law enforcement, by doing, arguably questionable work, to say the least, as far as this case goes. I think AWP spinning a foul play narrative on their video. And I think these YouTubers, then you have Ryan Upchurch doing what he's doing. You have, it's just it's a mess. And all of these things contribute to Kiely's family not being able to move on peacefully.
And it just delays it forever, because if they come out and say this was a tragic accident, it's going to be this is a cover-up. Look, the laptop proves it's a cover-up. All this proves it's a cover-up. There's just so many things now that people will use.
Let me address this real quick.
Yeah,
somebody's asking me, the Glare, will you be allowing AWP on to respond to this? I would be more than happy to allow them on here to respond. I'm not here to bash anyone. So at any point, if they ever contact me and want to come on here and discuss this, I'm more than happy to give them a chance to tell their side. And what's funny is I haven't really watched, because I know they've been making a lot of appearances on different YouTube channels.
Yeah.
And the YouTube channels that they've been going on are very questionable to me. These are not responsible YouTube channels. These are people who we like to refer to as tragedy pimps. Some of them that they've gone on, not all of them, but a couple of them. And to me, that affects their credibility with me that much more. So, and that's not to say, well, I don't want to hear anything they have to say. I just don't want to contribute to those channels because I don't like what they do. So the proper response to that question is yes. In order for me to form a proper opinion is for me to be able to discuss this with them directly and let them tell me, and respond to these to the criticism that they are getting, and it's only fair. It's only fair.
I haven't done any interviews or anything since the initial announcement, which the family asked me to do there at the site, just to confirm. And I've passed it all except yesterday or the day after the laptop and stuff was found. Then it was becoming such a shit show that I was like, okay, I think I'll do one of these, and to kind of clear things up. And Grizzly, who I do think has very responsible, coverage and stuff, she arranged to have the YouTuber who found the laptop on, and then she said to me, would you appear and would you mind being on with Adventures with Purpose? And I said, I would love that. I would love that because I'd like to get this squared away. Why aren't they just clearing up? See, people are so mad because they think that oh, you're a clout chaser because you're saying you told the family, but you didn't tell the family. I'm like, why can't we clear these things up? Adventures with Purpose told her they would appear on the show, but they would not appear if I was on it. So they won't appear with me.
Huh. Interesting.
I don't know why that is. If I'm lying, then why not call me a liar?
And prove it and show timestamps the way that you just did. That's not a good look for them.
I'm not here to
say that you're telling the truth and they're lying. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is it's not a good look in the sense that if you're willing to speak to them and they're refusing to speak to you, and you're showing what we like to call in the true crime community receipts, which is proof, data, and then you know what I mean? That's a bad look. You know, that's not to say that they're lying. I'm just saying it's not helping their credibility. You know,
I get this drama every case that I'm involved in, and it has to do with one
anything high profile. Sure. Yeah.
Well, it's just one group that has this thing for me, and this one guy in particular. But it's fine. I'm used to that. However, this is different because these are statements from the family that I've released. So what people are doing is they're attacking this 16-year-old deceased girl's family who's grieving. And so if Inventors with Purpose could do something to help like tamp this down and say, okay, what is the truth and what's not? You know, like, okay, so if I'm lying, then this is a great way for them to prove it, and then poof, I have to go away, right? And then the family gets, you know, the attacks on the family stop, and vice versa. You know, nobody needs to be like wrong either. We can just say, yeah, you know, listen, these things got sensationalized a little bit, or things got taken out of context. I asked them the day
I'm
after
willing
it happened.
I'm willing to believe that these are all just points of perspective that are misinterpreted. You know, that's it. I'm not accusing anyone of being a liar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
know
so
you're not,
far
there are people. Yeah, there's definitely people out there. And I asked Doug 2 days after I asked him. They called me, and then then Doug emailed me, and I asked him. I said, "Can we just clarify this, because I can tell it's spinning out of control online?" And they said, we don't address the trolls. Just, he said, and I suggest you use the same advice. Well, I mean,
yeah. Let me address this question here. Do you all really believe her family would ask him to show up and put out statements for them if he inserted himself? His story hasn't changed. It's a good point. I mean, well, T. Sorrel, we don't know. We won't know until that autopsy comes out. Now, they did say, law enforcement, I've had the argument this entire time that I don't think that we're ever going to get those autopsy results, because I don't think that her family would sign off on that, since she's a minor and contribute more to this circus, you know. But at the same time, we did see a statement from law enforcement that said that when the toxicology results come back, that they will be sharing that.
right.
So, but so far they're looking for. Well, I mean, the way that they're handling this, I mean, there's two possibilities as far as my opinion goes. If it's coming down to a toxicology report, that it's an accident. If they find out that she overdosed, let's say, right, that it was an accident and she passed out, drove her car into the water, right? And how she ended up in the back of the car as the car is going down this way. The force of the water filling up made it harder for her to crawl out the open window that was in the front seat. So it kind of gravitated her towards the back of the hatch, and maybe she thought she could open the hatch from the back in a panic and just couldn't and drowned. Or foul play, in the sense that she overdosed and somebody did not want to be implicated in providing her with those drugs, and then they just put her in the back of the hatch and got rid of the car. So those are the only two possibilities, but I am very much leaning towards the former, not the latter.
And one thing I want to say, because I know the person, so it was 100% accidental, question mark. Listen, I gave my opinion this morning that everything I've seen and discussions I've had lead to
these are just opinions, people. These are just opinions.
But they are based in some sort, you know, like, well, I'll tell you. Okay, so I got a tip from somebody about a week ago by email. Somebody claiming that somebody had made a claim to this person that they killed her. So I forwarded it to the FBI, and I forwarded it to the family, you know. And I said, hey, I said, these are pretty common in cases where people like to, but I'm not going to not forward it. I'm like, it does make some claims of killing her in there. So if you don't want to read it, don't. But I forwarded it to the FBI as well. So FBI got back and said, we're not actively working the case anymore. Call Nevada. Okay, so that pretty much told me there that FBI is out of, which I'd heard anyways.
Yeah, I'm under the impression that Nevada County has taken over the investigation.
They're the lead. So they told us at the crash site, they said what's going to happen is they said that Placer County, Nevada County, FBI, and CHP all had investigations open, independent investigations. And they said what's going to happen is, as of today, Placer County will close theirs because they just had a missing persons case because she lived in Placer County and now she's not missing. They said technically it's going to stay open until the coroner makes a determination, but Placer's done as of today. Nevada becomes the lead. The FBI has a separate investigation going, and so does CHP. They all work together, exchanging notes and stuff, but Nevada's the lead. So FBI, who was handling more of the homicide type leads and tips and stuff like that, then that was the first time that they had told us, hey, start directing that to Nevada because we're out of it. Then when the laptop was found, the officer said, yeah, our investigations are done. We're just waiting on CHP. So that tells you that, yeah, of course they're going to come out with a statement saying, yes, we're all still talking. They are still talking, but I mean, the investigation, they've obviously come to a conclusion. They've already said that they have the autopsy back. They're waiting toxicology reports, which is standard, it'll be pending, but, it's been my experience, there'd be a lot, very different, cadence. If they were working a foul play, homicide type thing, there would be a lot more action, and also
be a lot more activity, right? It seems like there would be a lot more activity.
They told the family, they tell the family if there's an accident.
This is this question actually is a good lead into what you're about to say. She asked, can you ask Steve if the family feels this is an accident? Do you know if her father and grandparents feel this is an accident?
Yeah. So I'll say that when that same lead came in, her father talked with the lead detective, and it was relayed to me that it was said that they have nothing at this point to indicate there was anything other than an accident, a tragic accident. Now, when I say accident too, I want to be clear with people. We're talking, accident versus homicide. You got homicide, suicide, accidental,
or foul play in the sense that an accident took place and then it was covered up because
does not mean that like somebody didn't. It doesn't mean that like they could have been driving along that beach and there was another car behind, or even car could have clipped hers and they couldn't get to her. They panicked and took off, and law enforcement maybe even knows about that now. But that'd still be accident. In other words, it was not intentional homicide, like killed her or she OD'd somewhere and they pushed a car in. It very well. Listen, I talked to her father. I said, could you see any scenario where like Kiely would be like showboating or let somebody like maybe be doing donuts or whatever in her car? And he's like, you can't rule it. He's like, it could happen. So I'm not saying. Listen, there could have been
there's an infinite amount of scenarios that could have taken place.
But those are still accidental. Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
It's negligence for sure. I'm not saying that there is negligence involved here, just so people know. I'm just saying that this wasn't like a murder.
Right.
But I feel like people want it to be a murder. That's not
right, because it's more entertaining to them. And it's really sick. And people don't like to be faced with that reality, because if you accuse someone of that directly, because I can accuse people in mass of that because I've seen it for 4 years since I started doing this, and I've always called this out. because the same thing happened. There was a case, the Chris Watts case in Colorado, right?
Yeah.
He pled guilty. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, did he do it? Did he do it? Blah blah blah. Was he telling the truth?" Facebook groups were just going crazy. I was an admin in one of them, and everybody was just going crazy with their speculations and scenarios. And then he pleads guilty, and then everybody's like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah,
and nobody wanted to accept that because they got cheated out of the drama of a trial. Simple. Like, what? No, I plead guilty. How could this have happened? Because he did it. Plain and simple. He did it. And they told him if they had enough evidence, and that that shows that they had plenty of evidence later on that became very apparent. And they said, well, if you go to trial, you're not going to win, and you're going to get the death penalty. And if you plead guilty, well, then we'll take the death penalty off the table. You just do life in prison.
Right.
You can still have a relationship with your parents. That's it. But that wasn't good enough for people. People were like, no. Well,
one thing's for certain is one thing that I feel really, really strongly about, and it just wears on me, is that Kiely's 16 years old and she got left at that party. She was clearly, the family is not saying she was not intoxicated. That I think is going to be very clear. We have other evidence.
My theory is that she was very intoxicated.
Yeah, and besides the Truly cans, we have other evidence of that. So listen, the toxic report is not going to be clean. She should have not been left there. And I'm not like, listen, I used to party like fucking crazy. I've done stuff like that too and left friends behind because I've gone off with some girl or something. But God, in the end, it's like, I hope those kids, I don't want them to have a guilty conscience, but I hope that they can sit down with that family and apologize and
it's
do
not
something.
A crime. It's not a crime to be a self-centered kid. You know what I mean?
No.
It's part of life. It happens, especially if everybody's intoxicated, partying, and I'm not going to become responsible for this person because that person should be responsible for themselves. I'm responsible for myself. Why should I be responsible for them? Is the justification that people make, especially when you're a kid. And today's kids, because this comes up a lot, is like, I have a lot of people that are my age in their 40s, and some people even older in their 50s, and they'll say, well, when I was a kid, I always looked out and we had a designated driver, this and that. But the kids today are just, in my opinion, a lot more self-centered than they were at our age or when we were that age, because now there's social media, and social media puts a kid in a position to be very self-centered and be very self-involved, and how many followers am I going to get, how many hits am I going to get on this post, and blah blah blah. And then it's all about them, and it doesn't make them bad kids, it just makes them kids who live in the world we live in today.
That's very
that's
true.
it, right? So and nobody wants to accept this, and it's just, well, but I so right now I'm in a place right now where I feel like it's not fair to Jagger what he's going through.
Hey, listen, Jagger, man, if he happens to run across this, I listen, at the very beginning, when you're like, where is she and why, it was the whole like that the story with the Boca guy that had seen her, when that's all fresh. Listen, he's somebody that was like, okay, that should be looked into, but it took literally like 12 hours. It was like, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And so,
and I feel bad. So because like,
I never said it publicly, but there was a time, of course, I suspected anybody in her orbit, you kind of like eliminate them. But if he's watching this, man, I am so sorry for. I mean, I know he loved this girl, even if they weren't together at the time. I know, and how that like young teen love is so intense, and then to be accused, because listen, I mean, the new rumor is that this group is trying to spread that I killed her now. That's how crazy it's gotten, which I laugh at. But I mean, I can see how this kid, because there's people that really do believe it. you know, like this kid's got to just be like everywhere he goes, you know, he's got people like, oh, did he do it? You know, there's nothing that shows he had any involvement. And I hope that he, you know, finds peace in this somehow. You know, uh, I know that people are not going to believe if it comes out as accidental. I know there's certain part of the population is not going to believe it, and it's going to be this. But I hope that he, you know, surrounds himself with some good people and, you know, finds peace in the deal.
I agree with you. And then there's the Sammy girl, and uh, I'll share my opinion on that, and then let you kind of take over on that.
Yeah.
My opinion on my observation. You just tell me how much you agree or disagree.
Hmm.
Um, Sammy is an example, in my opinion, of someone that, like I just described, as far as somebody just being very involved, social media, that sort of thing, and she seems to be just a normal 18-year-old kid who's very social and enjoys attention. You know, so she jumped in front of cameras and she got a lot of attention, but that doesn't mean, and she probably embellished her relationship with Kiely, but that doesn't mean that she's suspect of a crime. It just, to me, means that she is a teenager, 18 years old, who enjoys attention and probably embellished her relationship with Kiely to get more attention. You know, but she was also very active in the searching, and she was
Hmm.
very active in organizing, and, you know, but there were things about her that were like, well, you know, don't call the police if you get something. Call me. Come to me. Like,
Yeah.
no, you call law enforcement. Like, if you have
Yeah.
any information, you call law enforcement. And I get what her point of that was like, she thinks that people are afraid to go to law
Hmm.
enforcement because they were engaged in some sort of illegal activities such as drug use or drug selling.
Hmm.
But it doesn't matter. Like, be a grown up, sack up and go talk to a cop. You know, they're not interested in that. That's been made clear. Don't go to a kid, you know, because
Yeah.
18, yeah, she's legally an adult, but she's still a kid. I was
But just
still
not
very
trained
much
in
a
taking
kid.
down that. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I was still very much a kid at 18.
Yeah.
Imagine myself at 18 and people coming to me with that information. No,
Hmm.
I would have been the worst person to do that. But that's personally how I feel about it. I don't think that there's anything that would tie her to having done anything to her or anything, you
Yeah.
know.
I agree. I think she opened herself up to a lot of like that
She did.
speculation. And like
And
you
I don't
said,
think she thought about it.
that's
Yeah.
just being an
I don't think
18
she
year
thought it
old.
through.
And like all of a sudden you got all these cameras and people are like really wanting to know your opinion. You know, like they genuinely wanted to know her opinion. I know now that yeah, they were not as close as she made it sound. I mean, she was very close with Mags. You know, Kylie would live at Mags a lot of the house a lot of the winter because Coldstream would get they don't plow that road. So they were very close, and they lived just a couple doors from each other, Mags and Sammy. But um, so I think, yeah, they were not as close as she made it sound. So she then when you start hearing, oh, that's not adding up, and then like the 12:36 call when the phone stopped pinging at 12:33. So she opened herself up to a lot of this questioning. I don't think it was malicious, you know. The actually the day that I decided I was going to drive up there was when she made that statement about the team, just come to me. We're going to go in the trailer, and you know, just I was like, and I tweeted at Foster County Sheriff, and I'm like, how can you let this happen? Like, and they actually tweeted back like it was a public forum. I didn't know she brought her own microphone. um, so
Wow.
yeah,
I
so they
didn't
said
know
it was
that
public
either.
forum. But then when I got up there and I talked to David and stuff, and after they um disclose, and I don't, you know, I haven't seen an official report, but after they disclose whether it was accidental or whatever, and it disclosed, I'll disclose this part. But those team to team meetings ended up actually being a blessing, kind of.
Okay.
I'd say more to that, but there there was information gathered, like, let's say, but
Okay,
I'll
good,
disclose
good.
that after. So I think that's why you didn't see them shut down hard like that. So
Right.
um but yeah, so but she listen, I think she meant well. I think she got carried away with the limelight, and I think that it didn't come across all that she was all, like, well, one thing I will say, and this is not to take a shot at the kids either, but I never saw anybody searching after the cameras went away. You know what I mean? Like that 8 days I was out there searching,
Oh,
I never saw one. I saw the two people. I saw that the YouTuber guy. I don't think he wants his real name used. And then I saw another guy who apparently was like an employee of her grandfather's at some point at the lodge a long time ago, and he used to stop there on his own time. I never saw they could have been in different areas or whatever, but and every time I went to the volunteer trailer, which is where everybody was like supposed to check in, and they had maps hanging, like areas that had been searched stuff, and you could pick up water and supplies and stuff. I never saw anybody there besides the family there, like there to answer questions and stuff. So it seems like once the cameras went away, a lot of that went away too. A lot of searching went away.
Let me ask you one more thing.
Hmm.
Does do you have any knowledge of how the family members that you're in contact with, how they're reacting to Ryan Upchurch's behavior on social media?
So I got um so I'll be honest with I'd never heard of Ryan Upchurch before with this. So that's all kind of new to me, and I really haven't watched too much of it. Besides, there's one. The family did reach out. Her grandfather, um, just in a conversation with me on the phone, talked to me about, which I did tweet about afterwards. When I guess a statement was made that Kiely wasn't real.
Yeah.
Um, and
Oh,
that,
I have been extensively covering Ryan Upchurch's theories, if
yeah,
that's what you want to call them.
yeah.
Um,
So the grandfather is a very soft spoken, but he's not. He listens. He's a listener. He doesn't say a lot, but he just said he said she was our everything. She's very real, and
right.
he was it took the wind out. It was hard to listen to him talk about it, because yeah, just, so yeah,
So
they know.
yeah, I get what you're saying. So his response was just it was a very humble response, not angry, just
No, not any, no, they're not
like
like that,
in a sense of like it had a more of a sense of like how can somebody say that about this amazing person that we had in our
He was
lives and
just
now
like
is
she
gone.
was our life, she was our
Right.
everything, and he the last time I talked to him was day before, night before last, and after he had gone out, I told him that um the guy had found the laptops and stuff, and he went out there, and I talked to him after, and he's like, Steve, I just want this all to be over with. He's like, I just want this all to be over with, and I get it. It's shit. It's I can't imagine. Like, I watched my dad go through this with my younger brother's death, and to lose a kid, and then but to have this circus around it. Oh boy. Um,
Yeah, I just can't even imagine going through that. And it's just so
yeah,
funny how the majority of people don't seem to take this into consideration.
yeah,
It's really Twilight Zone stuff, and it's really the bulk of my content for the past 4 years covering
yeah.
crime cases.
Really.
Because I don't really there's true crime channels that will collect all these facts and they'll go over them and give the speculation and theory and blah blah blah. Some do it very responsibly, some do it very irresponsibly. As a matter of fact, most of them do it irresponsibly.
Mm,
There's only a handful that I would call credible.
yeah,
Um, and then it just makes good content for me to try to because it's something that at the end of the day I feel good about is
yeah.
calling out those channels that do this,
Hmm.
that just behave in such an irresponsible fashion and don't realize how they're victimizing people by creating narratives that make someone look guilty when there's no evidence. And what that does is it spins people into a frenzy, and then they end up sending threats to these people, and without considering that these are grieving people. They just lost somebody in a very tragic and horribly violent way most of the time.
Yeah.
Not in this
drowning.
case necessarily, but right.
Yeah.
And then they just don't take this into consideration. So and it's sad that this has been a consistent way for me to make content for the past 4 years. You know, it's sad because it happens, and it's just, and I'm hoping that the day will come to where that shifts and the majority of these YouTubers actually start taking these families into consideration.
And the YouTubers, and also the people that are watching it and spreading it. You know, like I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, you had no right to be with the family or to tell the family. You should have let Adventures with Purpose tell them." Well, I had no choice. So, like, was, you know, like, but beyond that, like, they're like, "Oh, you're just trying to bed yourself with the family." You know, well, first of all, I mean, I got a really heartfelt letter from them. They're very glad that they did not hear about this on social media. You know, like they were told, you know, in a caring way. And also, but if you met this family, you talk to them, it'd be really hard for people to be making these hateful statements that they're making, because these are very real people that loved that girl and miss her and will always miss her, you know.
Yeah, that's incredibly just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Gary Johnson, he actually answered this earlier. Asked Steve how he knows Jagger was the guy identified in the Roadhouse assistance recording. He, if I remember correctly, Steve had said that it was one of the guys from AWP that told him that, right? They told you that.
Yeah. So he asked me. He said, if you had to come up with any suspects, if somebody did something to Kiely, who would you? And this is me and Doug and her father and grandfather standing in a circle, and I said, Jagger and Sammy would be the two people we'd be looking at. And he said, when he said they showed a picture of Jagger to the tow truck driver, he said, "That's the guy."
See, this makes me mad too. Like, do you have video proof? Not everybody videotapes every single conversation.
But they do.
You know what I mean?
The AWP does, though, and I wish they would show it. and that's
right.
why,
so
like,
you're saying that this was
edited
out of you're saying that this conversation was filmed and they edited out of their video, is what you're saying.
Well, they have the other part of the because, you know, when
they just left it out of that video.
You hear me say, like, was she seatbelted in? They blur me out, you know, because they're like, for whatever reason. But like, I'm not taking shots at them.
They blurred you out because they didn't have your permission to be filmed.
Well, they don't have the grandfather or fathers either. But
right.
So the thing is, I'm not taking shots at them. I'm just telling you what the truth is. So obviously they were microphones. So that means everything that was said was caught on audio. So why not just release that and show, you know, because video always has time bars, you know, time codes, make sure nothing was edited out. But I would say, like, what I would love, nothing more, is to have a discussion like this with AWP. No yelling, no accusations. Let's just let everybody hear. Like, why can't we just straighten this out? Because I don't think anybody, like, intentionally is trying to, like, you know, like, I just think that it should be, when we're talking about 60-year-old death, like, let's keep it the facts. Because by saying that I'm lying, you're saying the family is lying, because I'm just relaying what the family's asked me to say, you know?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So I wish they would come on. I would love to go on a show like you're with them. If they, I don't know why they refused it.
I would be more than willing to bring them on, you know?
And I'm not dodging. So everybody knows, I'm not dodging them at all. I would love to. I'd love to straighten out, just have a civil conversation.
I'm not either. I agree with you. I think that and I think it would do a lot of good, honestly.
I do too. It would help the family tremendously.
It would help the family.
Because it would tamp down a lot of this.
And it would,
nonsense.
right, exactly. It would slow down. At least it would just kind of just dilute at least a lot all of the back and forth that's happening on Twitter and all these other social media platforms, So I'd like to see that. Yeah, he said he wants to chat with them. So I don't know. They can contact me. What I've seen them normally do is jump in someone's chat and say, "Hey, can I have a link?" And then they'll come up. But I if they did that, I would absolutely be willing to let them up.
Yeah. Or and if they can't do it right now, then I'll do it anytime.
Have you tried to contact them? That's what my crotch is saying here.
So I, the last contact I had with him was with Doug, actually, by email, and he just said, we're not going to address the trolls, and I suggest you do the same. And I was like, and I replied back, I'm like, but Doug, it's not that easy, because listen, they've got what, a couple million followers, I've heard, or something. So, and what they say is considered fact, but also I'm trying to do is straighten this out for the family, and it's not, I don't want them to say we were wrong. I just want to say them to say, yeah, okay, this is the sequence of events, and I think there's situations where both sides can be right. Like I don't know. People got so many different issues. Like, some people are like, oh, the notification, you're lying about that. Some are saying, you're lying because dad and grandpa were already on site. If I was lying about all this, the family would have come out with a statement saying SF Investigates is lying.
Right.
So I don't know. I would love to just have a civil conversation and just say, listen, why can't we just say this is what happened? You guys did an amazing job. You guys found Kiely. Probably could have been better coordinated on who to call. The family never heard from Adventures with Purpose before they came. So, and then, on the next case, this doesn't happen maybe, but that way it ends this for the family, because right now have a lot of their fans, which I understand why they have such diehard fans, but they're saying the family's ungrateful and all that. The family's so grateful. They're beyond grateful, but they're just
right.
like,
I don't see how they wouldn't be, and
Yeah.
I think it's not fair that that's misinterpreted just
Right.
because they have feelings that certain things could have been handled a little bit better. I don't think
Right.
there's
That's all it
anything wrong
is.
with
Yeah.
that. Right.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna wrap this up
Okay.
and get this done at the 2-hour mark, but I want to give you a chance to go ahead in closing to say anything that you'd like to say.
I mean, I think we went over it all. I just want everybody to remember, like, listen, if you're gonna have issues directed at me, leave the family out of it, like their names and saying that they're ungrateful. Listen, aim whatever you want at me, but this family is going through. I can't imagine what they're going. None of us can, unless you've been in that situation.
Right.
And today's her memorial. So just like, remember that this is real life. This is not a reality show. It's this, somebody lost their life, and somebody lost a daughter and a granddaughter, and she has an 8-year-old brother, you guys. So, like, he's reading all this, she has an 8-year-old brother that's devastated, and he is on social media, or he sees the stuff on social media. So, directed at me, just like try and leave, even if you're like, just say that case, don't say Kiely case, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, it just, like, I guess.
Right, you're saying just don't stir the pot. Like, let's try and let it die out a little bit. Let law enforcement do their job because it's in their hands now, and
Yeah.
just wait for the answers.
Yeah, exactly.
I
And I
agree with
think
you.
Adventures, if we could do something with Adventures with Purpose, I think they would tamp that down, because I do think a lot of this is just simple misunderstanding. I really do. Like, I think it could be straightened away, but that's up to them. I'm willing to do it. But we'll see.
Because I'm not going to lie, I flat out accused them of spinning a narrative of foul play to make their video more dramatic, to get more views and more subscribers. Sure,
It does look
now
that way.
in order to do it, you know, in order to raise money for their cause. That's what they do to raise money for their cause. But I feel like they could go about it a different way. I've straight up said that they do good things the same way that Equisearch does, Tim Miller. But you don't see Tim Miller jumping on every YouTube channel and creating these, producing these documentary style videos of searches and going, oh well, because of your donations, we were able to do this. You know, that you don't see them, you don't see Tim Miller doing that, and they get plenty of donations and they get plenty of support, and their humble approach to it is exactly what inspires people to support them, you know. So you know, that's my criticism for it, you know, that's all. I just, you know, I don't think it's responsible to spin a foul play narrative when you're not experienced enough. You know, just because you find things in the water, you're not experienced enough to determine if something is foul play or not. You're not an investigator. You're not, you know, so you don't have law enforcement experience, and you don't have, you know, searching, you know, investigative experience. You know, you just don't. So, so I that's why I think it's irresponsible.
I agree. I mean, you know, like I don't care what they do to raise money as long as it's fact and it's truth based and but just because, listen, maybe the guy in Boca did run across somebody that looked similar to her, but for people to just determine that's fact, first of all, listen, the FBI knows exactly what that's all about. You know, like phone records have been obtained, social media tracking, you know, location data. Like there's a lot more known than what's out there right now, you know, by certain people.
Where exactly were those cameras again that you said? On the
there's one, is the main highway the 80, I believe. The main one that goes through Truckee. So if you're coming down the road from Prosser down towards Truckee, you know, the main highway, I'm pretty sure it's the 80, it's called. She would have to get on that and go west for 2 exits. There's a cam there, the traffic cam there, and there's one in Donner Pass that is a snow level camera for like the skiers check and stuff. You know, they can see the snow levels. There's a ski cam, but it's year round. And in Donner Pass, which would be if she went the back way, that's one route they catch her. And then there's one out by a Boca exit, which is not far from the location where the surveillance photo of her at 6:30 that night.
Again, another case where the professionals that are investigating this have a lot more than we could ever know, because they're the ones investigating. We don't, you know what I mean? We don't know what kind of evidence they've collected. We don't know who they've interviewed. We don't know what kind of devices they've gotten from the party and looked at. We don't know any of this stuff. So when people are like, well, why haven't we seen any footage from this party? Well, because A, it's full of minors. B, you know, like law enforcement, I promise you, has thoroughly asked these questions to the people at this party. They get one lead, it leads them to somewhere else, and then so on and so forth. And then they cover these things.
And like I told you, I'll tell you after they've announced the case, but those team-to-team meetings, a lot of stuff came out of.
Okay.
And also, we know she put 2 gallons of gas in the car. So we know her range was about 45 miles or so at the most. Keep in mind, you know, those talking mountain roads, so she's not, if it's even that. But going off the manufacturer's data, that would be the max range. So every gas station surveillance in that circumference was pulled. So we know she didn't get fuel. So it's not like, you know, so there was a lot going on, you know.
Okay.
But those 3 traffic, I know the one traffic cam on the 80 is actually a public cam, because we're able to monitor it too. If you go on like CHP's website, it would be like the Truckee something interchange or something like that camera.
Okay. Yeah, Judy M. Yeah, we haven't forgotten that AWP found.
They're amazing.
We've given them, and we're going to continue. I promise. We don't need to be reminded every other comment.
Yeah.
We know. I promise, and we give them all the credit in the world.
I mean, they really did do an amazing job. I mean,
they did. Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's denying that. Nobody is denying that.
And Kiely would still be sitting in that water today if it wasn't for them. I'm convinced of that. She'd still be in that water, and the family.
Nobody's denying that either.
Yeah.
So. I mean, we're not saying that these are villains and masked as angels. This is not what we're doing at all. These guys are doing great things, but they're clearly people who have a right to have certain criticism towards certain actions that they took, have the right to have those opinions. That's all we're saying, which are Kiely's loved ones. That's all we're saying. No, we're not saying anything. I don't know why that's so difficult to understand. Somebody was just like, is this a hate channel? Like, no. I mean, I could tell you, for my channel, I could speak for myself. I hate ignorance. That kind of thing is irritating. If you were listening and, if all you're hearing is hate, then there's something wrong with you. I'm sorry.
No, it's gratitude. I mean, that's the whole thing is like people saying the family's ungrateful. Like, that's the whole thing. It's like, and that's what I wish there's a person would talk about, because they're not, the family's so grateful that they're just like, they just don't want this other circus atmosphere around it.
Right. There's certain things that could have been done better to at least not perpetuate the circus that this case has become. That's right. All the family's saying, and that's all we're saying. He's only conveying what the family has told him. That's all he's doing up here. He's not up here trashing anybody.
No.
So guys, like, stop with your this person versus this person attitude. This isn't a WWE promo. You know what I mean? We're just we're just trying to, explore certain things and get this family some peace. That's all. But I want to thank you, Steve, for joining me. You're welcome here anytime, man. So I do hope that if anything comes up, we can do this again. It was a very pleasant
experience. If AWP decides to do it, just I can do it on short notice. If AWP wants to make an appearance, and listen, I promise you, I can promise them, it will be very civil, at least on my end. I just want to clarify these things. That's all for their viewers, because I think everybody is grateful. So
Verika Z, I totally said that. I'm not denying that I said that, and I do believe that. But that's just simply criticism. That's not taking away from the fact that they brought closure to the family. That's not taking that away. These are two separate things. But it's almost that in certain instances, certain things can cancel each other out. What good is doing all this good when you're spinning a narrative that's just bringing them, they get closure here, but then they get all this, crazy stuff on the internet happening and bombarding them with madness on another end. It's just not, what's the point is all I'm saying. If they're really trying to bring closure to the family, do a little better. That's all I'm saying. I don't mind saying that. And I'm not speaking for Steve here. That's my opinion.
I agree. Yeah.
So anyways, thank you, Steve. I really appreciate
you.
Man.
Okay.
And we'll be in touch, again, man, thank you for doing this in such short notice and answering me back. And that was just really unexpected.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, thanks, man. And I'll talk to you soon, hopefully, with AWP.
Yes, sir.
All right. Bye.
Good night. All right, guys. I want to go ahead and thank all you guys for joining me tonight. And I know, I highlighted the super chats, but I didn't really go over them and verbally say thank you. I'm just going to en masse say thank you to all you guys en masse who did show some support via super chats in the chat. I just didn't want to interrupt my guest. And for some of you who were saying, I thought you were all about just letting anybody, why are comments being deleted if you let people talk and blah, blah, blah. Well, when I have a guest on, they may not see things the same way that I do. I can handle things, but out of respect for my guest, who normally does not go on YouTube channels, well, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, out of respect, delete comments and hide people who just cannot show my guest the proper respect. So that's why I did that. But for all of you who showed support, thank you so much. All of you new subscribers, welcome. I hope moving forward that you enjoy the channel, and I really, really appreciate all you guys. And another big thank you to Steve for joining me. And yes, AWP, any member of AWP that would like to come up here and defend themselves as far as some of the criticism that I've given, and set something up with Steve so that maybe you can hash these things out and bring the back and forth that's on Twitter and social media down a bit. You're more than welcome here anytime. You're more than welcome to join my panel. Excuse me. But anyways, guys, I love you very much, and we will do this again very soon, my friends.